just wanted to let you know that Adam will be around and we can have a Q&A question later on after we're done. The only Q&A questions that we hold here on the podium is when we go through the EV101. 101. Our next speaker is our champion, Rosemary Mascali, who is the chair of the Education and Outreach Committee. And just so that you know, this woman works 30 to 35 hours a week as a volunteer. She's retired, and she works harder now in retirement than she did when she was actually working. So thank you, Rosemary. Come on, please.
I'm going to just go through a brief state of EVs on Long Island. Adam talked about the state of EVs in the state. I want to brag a little bit about how we're all doing on Long Island. So first, a little bit about Drive Electric. Drive Electric Long Island is a coalition of organizations on Long Island that are all committed to accelerating the adoption of electric vehicles and EV charging infrastructure on Long Island. You can see from the logos that we have colleges and universities like Farmingdale, who's been a partner of ours right from the very beginning when we formed in 2018. PSCG Long Island, also a very strong supporter. We have companies, we have environmental groups that are all interested in electrifying transportation to improve our air quality and to reduce greenhouse gases. And by working together, I like to say 1 + 1 = 3, as opposed to each working independently. You can get more information about EVs and EV resources at our website, driveelectriclongisland.org. So a little bit of statistics about Long Island. Long Island is New York's largest market for electric vehicles, and there's a couple of reasons for that. We have almost 3 million residents and 1 million households with 2.3 million registered vehicles. So we like our cars on Long Island, so we have a lot of them. And we have 2.4 cars per household in Suffolk and 2.2 cars per household in Nassau. So it's very easy to make one of those an EV and keep your gas car, and we'd have 1 million cars, just like that. We also have about 21% of all the registered cars in New York State are here on Long Island. So if we look at, well, where are we now? This is as of the end of 2024. There were 271,000 EVs on the road in New York State. If you look to Long Island, we had 71,000 at the end of 2024, and I just checked the stats for the end of March, and we're at 75,000, over 75,000 now, so it's growing. From 2023 to 2024, for EVs on the road, we grew 39%. So people are interested in EVs, and they're acquiring them. If you look at the charts lower, you can see the growth in EVs, and these are our original registrations, so new EVs being registered for the first time on Long Island, and you can see the growth. And we actually had twice the growth of New York State in the number of original registrations. We have that 27% growth from 2023 to 2024. New York State had a 14% growth. So there's a couple of reasons why Long Island is growing like this. I talked to you in terms of the number of cars we have and the number of households, but we also are a great market for electric vehicles because we're 82% single-family homes. People have heard me say this once, they've heard me say it 100 times, but it's so important for electric vehicles because you can charge at home conveniently and inexpensively. This compared to New York City that might have, 16% single-family home. Most regions have 40, 50% single-family homes. The fact that we have 82% makes us unique and makes us a great market for EVs. A second reason why we're really good in terms of EVs making sense for us is that 80% of us live and work on Long Island, and we're a compact geography. So from the edge of Nassau out to Montauk Point, about 100 miles, north-south about 20 miles. That means that our average commute or daily usage is 40 to 50 miles a day. You can easily do that with today's current range. You could charge once a week if you wanted to with that kind of range. My EV, I happen to just plug it in when I get home and top off the battery. I charge with a regular 110 outlet. Most people use faster charging, and Jacob will do the EV101 next. Is going to go through all those charging options and EV basics, so I won't go into that now. But those are the key reasons why Long Island is unique And that's why we're so excited about promoting electric vehicles on Long Island, because it makes so much sense. And we really need it. Our air quality on Long Island is an F. And it's because the gasoline vapors that escape from all these cars intermingle with the heat in the summertime and form ground level ozone. So you notice the big signs on the LIE, ozone alert day, sensitive groups beware. People with asthma and COPD have to really be careful on those days, and we have more days than any of the area in our tri-state area. So it's important for us, it's an easy thing for us to do, to just convert even just one of our 2 cars to electric, and we'll have a significant impact with 0 emissions in our cars on Long Island. Let me tell you about what's popular right now on Long Island. These statistics are all from a report that I issue annually. State of EVs on Long Island. You can stop by our tent outside and get a copy, or download it from our website. So the most popular cars on the road right now, not surprisingly, are the Tesla Model Y and Model 3. After that, there's some plug-in hybrids. The Jeep Wrangler, the Toyota Prius Prime, the RAV4 Prime, and the Jeep Grand Cherokee. But that's the longevity of Tesla being out in the road. We're seeing a lot of growth in the non-Tesla models as well. So in fact, in 2024, there were 80 different EV models from 29 brands that were sold on Long Island. There's a huge variety of vehicles out there, all different types of vehicles, sedans, crossovers, SUVs, pickup trucks, from every brand that you might be loyal to. And so I would encourage you today, take advantage of the test drives we have, but if your favorite brand or your vehicle type isn't available, go to your dealer, ask for a test drive, because once you get behind the wheel of an EV, you'll see why we're so passionate about it. They're fun to drive, they've got quick acceleration, they're quiet, as well as saving you lots of money on gas or fuel, because they don't use gas, and on operating costs. Another thing that's we're very pleased is the non-Tesla dealer rebate requests. The rebates are, Adam mentioned the New York State rebate program. That's the kind of way that we measure sales, because we can't get actually sales data, but when they submit for this rebate, we track how many rebates different dealers had. And last year we had only 16 dealers that submitted more than 100 EV requests. That went up to 25 dealers. So we're getting more dealers because there are more models available from all the manufacturers. And so when you go into a dealership, you'll see electric as an option in just about every dealership, and more knowledgeable EVs. We're also doing some dealer education now too, as well as helping them to understand the benefits of electric vehicles over internal combustion engines. This is happening across the island. You know, some people say, oh, it's just the North Shore where they got money. No, the growth in the number of EVs on the road grew significantly across Long Island in most of the towns and cities. So top, we had in Babylon almost 50% growth in EVs on the road from 2023 to 2024. Behind Babylon, we had town of Hempstead, 46% growth. Long Beach, 45% growth. Smithtown, 44% growth. City of Long Beach, 43% growth. North Hempstead, 40% growth. Even if you come all the way down to Shelter Island, they had a 15% growth, and they don't have that many cars in, so to get around the ferry. So it's happening across the board, because now there are EVs at every price point and every model. And so if you had preconceptions in your mind about what's available in EVs and how much they cost, you have to educate yourself. That's why thank you so much for coming today. You'll get that education to see and be able to make a decision of whether an EV or a plug-in hybrid is right for you. So this is the report that all these statistics came from. It's State of EVs on Long Island. You can download it from the homepage of our website, Drive Electric Long Island, or you can stop by our table and pick up a copy of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. So now, if you're ready for some education, I'd like you to grab a cup of coffee, sit down, and be attentive. Because Jacob is he's a security systems engineer in Quintessel, World Express USA. But this is his hobby.
Passion.
And he's a student here. So this is all, that's the best you get. This part, gotta be attentive. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. I'm so excited to be here today. I'm just going to be going over some of the basics of EVs and how they work and how the charging works. And hopefully you're going to be able to learn something today. So before we cover this section, we're just going to do a brief video, if I can get it up, just to show kind of what we like to show what life would be like if everything.
Sound. I don't think the
I'm
sound
muted.
came up. It's on mute.
Yeah. No sound.
Bottom right where the speaker is.
What if everything ran on gas? Then again, what if everything didn't? The 100% electric, zero gas Nissan Leaf. Innovation for the planet, innovation for all.
So we are not endorsed by Nissan in any way. We just like to add the kind of the message that it sends, that everything in our life today runs on electricity. There's the reason why our cars can also run on electricity. All right, some of the topics I'm going to cover today, we're just going to do some brief history on electric vehicles, where we got started, basics on how they work, different types, some of the environmental considerations that you'll hear talked about on the news, some of the misconceptions that you'll often hear, and we've already covered incentives, so I'm not going to go over that. And I think we'll have some Q&A at the end, and probably outside you'll be able to find me and the other volunteers, that we can answer any questions you have.
Jacob, I go ahead and cover the incentives just to hear it
Okay,
again.
we can touch on the incentives a little bit. All right, so electric vehicles are not new. Electric vehicles have been around since the late 19th century. At points during the early 20th century, there was actually 1 out of every 3 vehicles was electric. The other 2/3 were gas and steam powered vehicles. And we have history. We have some examples of charging stations in New York City. We have long distance road trips. So this was new technology where we were trying to establish what kind of fuel was going to be the primary method in the country. And of course, we know the story. The gas kind of won out because it became more affordable. But electric was very popular just because it was so quiet. It was less noise, less emissions. Skip forward the 50 years or so, we have some examples of during the oil crisis, the embargoes. There was some investigation into the Postal Service had a test prototype for a Jeep that they were going to use. The GM EV1, that was very popular. It was, the famous story goes, everyone leased it, wanted to keep them, and GM didn't want to support them, so they had to get destroyed, or GM forced them to give it back. But when these vehicles were out, they were very popular. People loved them. And then we fast forward to kind of the more modern era that we're familiar with. Everyone knows the Prius. That introduced us to the hybrid technology that we're familiar with today. And even back, 97 was when the first one came out. That had 41 miles per gallon, which is not too shabby even today. And that's now almost 30-year-old technology. And then around 2006, Tesla came on the scene. They first showed up with their Roadster, which for the first vehicle on the road, it's better than some cars today. Almost 250 miles of range on their Roadster. there's EVs on the road today that you can buy with less than that. So that was very impressive going back that early. And now some basics. We'll skip over the adoption since we already talked about that. We do have we had the 50,000 EVs celebration a couple years ago, just last year. Now we're up to 75,000. Now, this is the important part. Basics of the electric vehicle. So everyone knows hybrids, they're all going to be powered by gasoline, and it's going to have a small electric motor and a small battery to kind of improve the efficiency of the engine. But it still has all of the parts of a gas-powered car. It still has to be fueled entirely by gasoline. You're going to have the maintenance requirements. You still have to get oil changes, all of that. Next up is going to be plug-in hybrids. Now this is kind of an in-between stepping stone that was popular, I would say, 5-10 years, starting 5-10 years ago, but the interest has kind of shifted to full electrics because people are realizing the benefits. But regardless, the plug-in hybrids were a way to get shorter range electric, where you could go, say, 20 to 40 miles on electric alone, charge at home, but you would then switch over after that to a gas engine, a small gas engine, to take you maybe another 200-300 miles. So that's kind of gave people a way of getting used to the EV lifestyle without, just kind of dipping their toes in. And then the ones that I drive and Rosemary and a lot of people here drive today are the battery electrics. There's no gasoline, there's no engine, there's no oil changes, there's nothing. And only in the 2 years I've had my Tesla, I've maybe changed one tire and refilled my windshield washer fluid. That's pretty much it. And not even brakes. So there is a lot less maintenance to consider. This is just an example of some of the models that are available today. There's some really great options in every style and every price point. I mean, we have Chevy is actually going to be here today. They have the Equinox EV, Honda, Hyundai, Ford, Nissan. Rivian is a relatively new brand, and they have their full-size SUV and pickup truck. But the point is that there's really models across, and this is a really small segment. This is the most I can fit on the slide. But this is, there's not something for everyone. If you want a pickup truck, van, compact, small SUV, big SUV, there's something for everyone and every family size. And a lot of these qualify for the federal tax credit, which is very important. Like definitely the Tesla and the Chevy will qualify for that. And I believe the Chevy Equinox will actually be available outside for a test drive. And then we have plug-in hybrids. You can see, just like I mentioned, they're 20 to 40 miles. I think the big one here is 42 miles on the RAV4 Prime. And then they'll go up to 400, 500 miles range when you include the gas engine. So if you're just going around town, doing your daily errands, running to the store, maybe close to you, and you're charging at home, you may never even use the gas engine, especially if your workplace has charging. That'll make it even easier to charge there and get back home. So this has become a popular option for people, but I think what a lot of people are finding is if they have the ability to charge at home, why add the complexity of also having to fuel the car? If you have the setup and a single family home with a garage or driveway with charging, you may as well go full electric. You have the setup anyway. Some of the biggest considerations with EVs, Rosemary touched on it already. They're very quiet. It's hard to say, it's hard to describe without experiencing it. I really encourage everyone, if you're going to be sticking around, to do one of the test drives today, just so you can see what it feels like. It's very just peaceful. It's very quiet, it's very calm. It's great for road trips. They're quick. They don't have any transmission, so the acceleration is like a direct, one-to-one power ramp. There's no lag on any transmission. You'll hear people ask a lot about the battery life. I'm gonna have to replace the battery in a couple of years. That doesn't really happen, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. But they're warranted by federal law. I want to say the minimum is 8 years, 100,000 miles. Someone up here in front can correct me if I'm wrong. But other automakers are even going further than that. I've seen 100,000, 150,000 miles, because they're just finding that these batteries last so long. Regenerative braking. Hybrids, if you have a hybrid, you might be familiar with this as well. All that's going to do is use the motors of the vehicle to slow down the car when you're coming to a stop, instead of using the friction brakes. And it actually will recapture that energy. Kind of the same principle as those old flashlight radios, emergency radios where you have to crank on it. Same principle is you're putting energy from the wheels motion back into the battery. So that improves efficiency, and it reduces your need to use brakes on the car, which increases the length of your brakes. There are some range impacts, just a little bit of planning. If it's colder weather, there's going to be a little bit of range impact. If it's under, like below freezing, maybe 20-30% drop in your overall range. But given that cars have at least 250 to 300 miles of total range, even taking that hit off, that's still, you're going to have at least 200 miles to cover your daily needs every day in cold weather. And since you're charging at home, a lot of cars offer what's called preconditioning, battery preconditioning, and it will warm up that battery ahead of time. Like my car, I can schedule it to say, if I'm going out, it'll warm up the battery so it's the most efficient and it preserves the length and the health of the battery in cold weather. This is a chart that we like to show. It's a couple years out of date, but just to show that the prices of fuel, as we all know, is so chaotic. It's going up, it's going down. Prices of electricity, they do go up a little bit, but it's not to the same scale as prices of gasoline in the United States. It's a lot more stable. It's a lot less dependent on foreign conflict, any trade issues that are going on, because the energy is produced here domestically. Some of the environmental considerations, we often hear, well, I don't want to get an EV because it's just getting energy from a coal plant. Well, here in New York, if you look, this is data from the Alternative Fuels Data Center. More than half of our energy in New York State comes from a combination of nuclear and renewables. That's hydro. We have a lot of hydro upstate. We have a growing amount of wind and solar. So even in the worst case scenario, you're still having half of your energy come from renewables. And then the rest is coming from natural gas, which is not ideal, but it is certainly better than coal. And if you look, you don't even see coal on this list. Other parts of the country, you'll see it. Do I have it on here? Yeah. So you'll see coal on the right side there. It does make up a small part of the overall United States, but that's different for each state. Maybe in like the Appalachian Mountains down south, there might be a little bit more coal, maybe in the Midwest. But that number is getting smaller every year. And right now it's actually below 20% is coal. So if anyone ever says, you hear that and say, I want to get powered by coal, it just doesn't happen. There's really not that much coal up there anymore. And I like to say, this is a very nice anecdote I like to share, gas cars can never get cleaner than they are today. When you leave your driveway and you're driving, that car is always putting out emissions, no matter what. An electric vehicle, we're not saying it's a perfect solution to emissions, but it will always get cleaner every year you drive it, because the sources of the energy is always improving. Life cycle, greenhouse gases for electric vehicles. Another question we often have is, well, what about the manufacturing, the battery sourcing? That's an important point. But people really discount how much vehicle and use emissions come from gas vehicles. So you can see on the right there, an average EV with 300 miles of range, you have that 65% of the emissions. Yes, comes from the fuel and the feedstock, like I mentioned with solar or natural gas. If it comes from coal, that's part of that. The battery is production and manufacturing the vehicle. It only makes up a small part, maybe 32% altogether. But comparing that to a typical gas vehicle, it's off the charts. It's a drastically bigger amount. once you get on the road. The EV has more, once they leave the dealership lot, the EV has slightly more emissions after manufacturing, but you make that up in like the first year, and you've already made that up. It's, like I said, the gas car isn't getting any cleaner, you're using it every day. All right, some basics on EV charging. It really is as simple as charging a phone. It's not complicated. When I get home, I just became a routine. I get out of my car, I have my charger directly outside my house, plug it into my car and walk away. Don't think about it. And I'll go into some of the incentives, but I schedule mine to charge in the late evening between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., where it is the cheapest off-peak, I have super off-peak rates. So I get, I think it's 40% discount on the electricity rates, and I barely even notice it in my electric bill, legitimately. I haven't noticed a major difference. There's a few different types of charging to know about. Excuse me. Level 1 charging, which Rosemary touched on, is 2 to 5 miles range per hour. And for a lot of people, that's really all you're gonna need. That's your 110 outlet. Like, I could roll a car in here and plug it into the wall and it would charge. Wouldn't charge very fast, but if you're charging overnight and you're only doing 20, 30 miles a day, that's more than gonna cover your needs for a daily basis. Level 2, this is where you actually have to get one installed by an electrician. There's rebates from PSEG to get discounts off of the chargers. But that will get you 10 to 30, sometimes even 40 miles of range per hour. And that, you'll get a charge in like 2-3 hours when you plug it in home if you're only using it for your daily errands. But that's very good for at home. You'll see that in a lot of multi-unit developments. You'll see that at workplaces, shopping centers. If you know Tanger Outlets in Riverhead and Deer Park they have 6 at each location. There's 6 level 2 chargers for free that they just have as an amenity, which is pretty great. Level 3, we don't like calling it level 3, that's an older term, but DC fast charging are the ones that you're going to see on the highway. These are the ones that you'll use on road trips. You're not really, most EV drivers, if you ask them, they're not going to use those on a regular basis because they're more expensive and it's not as good for the battery long term. But instead of saying 150 to 350 miles range per hour, I don't like using that because that implies you have to sit there for an hour, which is usually not true. A better way to look at it is you can get back on the road, get from say starting from 5-10% to 30-40% in legitimately 15 minutes, 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes, depending on your car. Some cars are slower, some cars are quicker. But if you're on a road trip and you're just getting where you need to go, you stop, run in, grab a bite to eat, stop at your charger, go use the bathroom. By the time you come back, it's charged and ready to go to the next stop. And it's quickest, this is a little tip, it's quickest when it's lowest, because it slows down as it gets higher. That's a little more advanced, but it's important stuff to know. There are 4 different types of chargers, but you'll see a lot of these are being phased out because there's a standard that's there's a charger type that's becoming standardized. So CHAdeMO, you typically only saw on Japanese EVs, Nissan, Mitsubishi. That's been phased out. You're really not going to see that much anymore. CCS is, for the recent past, that's been the charging standard for DC fast charging, anything that's not a Tesla. But now the new standard is actually the Tesla connector. They partnered with every automaker. They opened up the patent, so it's available to everyone, and that's actually become the new standard. It's called the North American Charging Standard. It's been adopted by the SAE, by the Department of Transportation, that this is going to be on every new vehicle and charger over the coming years. So we're slowly phasing away from CCS. You're still going to see it, but lots of new cars now are going to have NACS as the standard. And a lot of those cars now, that opens up the network as well. Tesla opened up their supercharger network. So any EV, if it's compatible and has the right plug, can charge on their network. And then of course we have level 2 charging. That's just standard, we call it the J-plug, J1772, but that, look, it's actually the the same as the top part of the CCS. That's very standard. You're gonna see that for any slow level 2 charger. And any car that doesn't have it, you'll have an adapter that the car will usually come with. This is, just briefly, this is just the growth of charging stations in New York. You can see it's almost exponential with level 2, because every small business and every shopping center is putting in level 2 chargers now. And even DC fast charging is up to almost probably over 1,600 ports by now. There's a lot of different places where you can look to see where the charging stations are. This is the Alternative Fuels Data Center managed by the Department of Energy. Just showing where chargers are on the island in the tri-state area. A lot of other third-party apps out there, there's like PlugShare, there's ChargeWay, a better route planner is good for planning road trips. And up on top, you see those are some of the providers that are available today. Just like you have your Shell and your Exxon, we have EVgo, EV Connect, ChargePoint, Electrify America, and Tesla are some of the big names for ChargePoint operators. I'll briefly go over incentives. I know we touched on it before, but just really quick, there's the $7,500 EV rebate, and you can take that off at the point of sale now. You don't have to file it on your taxes. There's a $4,000 used EV rebate if you were the second owner and from a dealership. There's some requirements, but that's a great option for people, especially with the prices of used EVs coming down. The dry clean rebate, like Adam mentioned, there's up to $2,000 for the price of a new car. That's right off at the dealership. And then HOV lane access, at least for the next few months, because unfortunately it's ending. The Clean Pass program is ending in September, but for a long time we had HOV lane access, and you do actually get discounts on the Easy Pass for the bridges. I think it's 10% if you apply with the department. Like I mentioned before, PSEG and Paul will talk about this a little bit. There's some rebates for chargers, so I'm just going to skip over that and I'll let Paul handle that. He'll probably go into the time of day rebates, the time of day incentives for charging, but like I mentioned, it's cheaper rates if you charge overnight. Paul will go into that. Some misconceptions, we touched on this a little bit already. They don't have enough range. That's not true. The average new EV today, I would say, it used to be 250. I would say it's getting closer to 300 miles of range right now. And there's, I think the longest range EV that you can get is 516 miles. I believe that's the Lucid Air. And it's expensive, it's a luxury car, but just to show that there is a range of vehicles. It's not all 150 miles, these little Econo boxes like you used to be familiar with. There's options for every range, every price point, every body style. And given that, like Rosemary was saying, most of us have single-family homes, over 80%, and it's such a compact area on Long Island. Your daily driving, you could go to the end of Montauk and back on a full charge without ever having to stop. You really can get where you need to go in an EV. We were talking about the emissions. I wanted to add to this is something I added. Even in a worst case scenario charging situation, say you're in West Virginia and your car is powered entirely by coal, worst case scenario, even in that situation, because of the efficiencies of the electric motor over the gas engine, you can see with the gas engine, a lot of the energy is lost in heat, in exhaust, vibration. They're just less efficient. The electric motor is actually 3 times more efficient in putting the energy that it takes to the road. Which means that even if your electric car is entirely powered by coal, worst case scenario, it's still 3 times cleaner than a comparable gas car. That's really important to think about. And you gotta think about the local effects, for air quality. Rosemary was saying we're rated an F in air quality with ozone and toxins in the air. And every EV on the road, even putting aside the environmental benefits for greenhouse gases, it's going to improve air quality and noise pollution for just our neighborhood. It's just to make our neighborhood safer and quieter. We hear it brought up often that the batteries are gonna end up in a landfill, it's gonna get polluted, and, you know, they don't last that long. I already mentioned that there's what was I saying? That there are warranties on the battery, that they're required to be warranted at least 8 years. But after that point, if, you know, long term, I mean, most people will trade in their cars after 7, 8 years. But even on the long term, when the car's reached its end of its lifetime, it's the lifespan, there's minerals in there that are very useful to manufacturers, and it would be foolish if they're just throwing away money if they put them in a landfill. It's not happening. What you'll often see is there's a lot of companies that are recycling the batteries. They're melting them down, smelting out the materials, the lithium, nickel, magnesium, whatever is inside the batteries, and they're putting that into new batteries. So that reduces the amount of materials that we have to mine, which is always a good thing. And we've even seen cases where they're repurposed. There was I forget where it was, but there was a case where old Nissan Leaf batteries from 2014, one of the first popular EVs on the market, they were taking them out of the cars. Even if they're not good for driving, they're good for battery storage. So a lot of utilities were actually taking them out of the car, just put them up in these boxes, and they can be used to power street lights and, you know, help balance out the grid by leveling out peak demand. This is really important. I really want to point this out. The battery replacements, like I just said, battery replacements really aren't happening. It looks like, you know, they got that big spike over there, but it's really important to point out the scale of this graph, where the top of that chart is only 8%. If you had it 0 to 100, you wouldn't even see the amount, but the amount of battery replacements is non-existent based on failure. Outside of warranty, within warranty, and for any reason. Battery replacements on EV is just unheard of. And that's actually why it's hard to, you know, I just mentioned the recycling, it's hard for them to get batteries to recycle because there's not that many batteries failing or going out of their lifespan. But it's just to dispel that myth. Battery replacements are just not a thing that happens. We have, some of the savings you're going to have on maintenance outside of the fuel savings. You're going to have no oil changes, you have no fuel fluid changes. You'll probably have to change your tires about as much. And one thing we often hear is, well, EVs are heavier. Not really. If you compare like a Tesla Model 3 and a BMW 3 Series are basically the same weight. So it's not like they're putting extra weight on the road. You're never have to change the muffler. You probably won't have to change your brakes, if ever. Maybe once it's in its entire lifetime, if that. No transmission service, no plugs, no tuning. You know, over a 10-year period, you can save at least $3,000, if not up to $5,000, just on the maintenance that you're not spending on the car. You know, you're never gonna have to worry about a transmission failing, and you're not gonna have to go get your engine fixed. It just doesn't happen. I would say you replace a battery about as often as you replace an engine in your car, which is pretty much never. The power grid won't be able to handle all the EVs. That's a misconception we hear. And the fact of the matter is, we've heard the same thing going back to, you know, when air conditioners first came out and refrigerators, that there was the same concerns that they wasn't going to be able to handle, the grid wasn't going to be able to handle all this new demand for electricity. And we adapted. You know, we improved the grid, we added capacity, and that's still happening today. PSEG and other energy utilities are increasing, you know, power battery storage. They're increasing solar and wind options, and we're already planning ahead for this capacity. Some learning resources that you can look up. We have Drive Electric Long Island's website, where some of the information we've talked about is available. PSEG has their own website. Near the end, NYSERDA, like Adam mentioned, they have their website. And, you know, we have the State Electric Vehicles on Long Island document that Rosemary put together. Well, there's copies of that available outside at the tent, you can look. And that is pretty much it. for my presentation. Thank you so much.
So he's referring his Q&A to when the EV block, when the test drive will take place.
Yes,
Is that
I'll be
what
up.
you're doing? Okay. So
I'll be outside.
in May, we'll hold off the question. We'll make a 10-minute break. Use the facilities, grab coffee, something to eat. At 10:45, we'll start.
Thank you.